Hey, Adrian here. I am going to do like a track session share explainer thing through the track for 2 listen parties ago that I submitted. It was the listen party of like try something new. And so there's 2 things that I guess I tried, this kind of being the second. I had it in mind to try doing a video cut together using Ableton. So if this has been uploaded, then that attempt was a success, I suppose. So structure wise, I'll just chat through kind of what the track is. Then the like music trying something new thing, which is like essentially using this. It's a Arturia beat step, I think it's called, like a sequencer. And basically how I tried to use that for creating a vocal loop, because creating vocal loops, like using chops and stuff, is something I really like the sound of. But it can be super time consuming, and so I was wondering if there was like a bit of a hack using this to kind of change the way I do that. Here's a like snippet of the track.
That showed weakness you didn't want to see. Now I'm a little guarded, maybe always should have been.
The idea essentially came from the fact that Leah, Elemí, artist in our community, had performed when we were in Berlin last year, and so it's an acoustic.
Did you know the pain? Talks of California spoken.
Mary Spender's vocals are like another kind of layer I've got in this. So that came from the song I Blame Myself.
Take the heat. That showed weakness you didn't want to see.
And then thirdly, for the drop or the chorus, in the lead up to the listen party, as I was thinking through this, I think Jack was releasing daily January stuff, and so I went through a whole bunch of his, and on day 29 there was this track that he made. As far as like structure, so verse 1, verse 2 is kind of, they exist together. Verse 1 is Mary Spender, and verse 1B is Elemí's. Initially I had these almost like one immediately following the other, but I was like giving Leah samples of this as it was like getting made, and yes, came up with like she sort of mentioned it could be cool to sort of like stretch it out a bit and have that sort of more conscious separation of like the evolution of the song, because you are kind of folding in a new vocal. As far as getting the keys to match, I've actually adopted the key of Leah's track, you probably realized, and that meant taking Mary Spender's track down like 3 semitones. And so there is that kind of like that artifact-ish kind of tone and timbre about her vocal. But yeah, I think because she sang it so high originally, it almost brought it down to a level that maybe is slightly more achievable for the average female voice. Like, I don't know if her voice is officially soprano or not. So bringing it down 3 semitones didn't sound like too much.
Then you blew it all away. Then you blew it all away.
Leah actually sent me a phone recording of both her vocal and guitar playing together, and so I actually used like the LALAL or something like that, but essentially like an AI stem separator to like hone in, like to separate the guitar and her vocal track, which worked like really well. I found generally that I don't know if this is because it came through an iPhone or because it was because of the stem separator, or maybe a little bit of both, but hearing Mary's vocal in isolation, which also was actually a stem separator, so I'm now thinking it was because of the iPhone. Yes, so did a stem separation for Mary's track as well, again, to get her vocal. But hearing Mary's vocal next to Leah's vocal, the kind of like mid-bass-ish stuff seemed to be missing from Leah's voice, but they were obviously singing in a similar register. So I assumed that Mary was singing on some crazy high-end mic. But it was just interesting hearing a mic recorded vocal and a phone recorded vocal. And so all it meant was I just kind of like really pushed some of the, like, it was just like a EQ kind of bump in the middle to bass of Leah's vocal. And then when I laid up her voice with kind of like a dropped 12 semitones, just to give it some like lower end texture and kind of, I don't know, did that.
Talks of California, spoken fantasies, I'd have done anything.
And then for Jax, this was a little bit of a happy accident, but it was only one, I think, semitone higher than what Leah had written her track in. And so I've only taken it down, I think, one semitone. It's so much faster, and I just had to use warp markers to kind of stretch out to really slow that track down. I think it worked for Jack's track because the track itself didn't have a huge amount of like instrumentation for this particular like day's jam, purely just that kick, but then like kind of intercut with that bass synth pulse thing that's just like super fast. And so point being, once it was slowed down, because there wasn't a huge amount of like filled up spectrum instruments to be distorted, it didn't sound as overall distorted. And in fact, any distortion that came through from that ultra kind of stretch out just introduced a nice amount of kind of like analog strangeness to the overall, the tone of it. It must have been that in Jack's track originally, he must have been like slowly dialing up the, I don't know, like something that made it sound increasingly a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more kind of like high frequency wise. And so for the second like drop, I let a little bit more of that pronounced resonant-y part of it into the drop to make it like, I don't know, set apart a little bit. I mentioned too for my other sort of something new was that I was using this like beat step thing to attempt to make a vocal loop. I essentially played for it for like an hour or two, and it was very much just kind of a learning curve of how to use this thing. Essentially, I think some of the value add being, like I set up a basic drum rack with some vocal chops, both from Mary's vocal and from Leah's vocal, and so just like assign them to stuff, and then once this is in sequencer mode, it just passes through and it just hits the same, like the first of those kind of like vocal chops in a sequence of 16ths, but dialing these, like each pad has its own independent kind of dial, so pushing it up to this sample, then this sample, then this sample, and then you can like switch them on and off, so you've just got eventually just like this loop of vocal kind of chops coming at you, and you can kind of dial them to different ones, and you're constantly morphing the overall I suppose like the overall loop as you go. It wasn't like the one that I ended up using, I manually sort of played around with myself, and so it was more a learning curve of how to use this thing if I was going to use it, but because I'm not strong enough in this, but that's I guess the whole point of like trying something new. Of like, I think next time I try to do this, it will be way quicker to set it up, and then I'll have more time to just like, I don't know, wait for that like kind of more set apart, cool, decent sounding loop to present itself. This was the loop that I ended up going with. That's it as far as the tracks. I'll put a few links with this in terms of like Jack, Leah, Mary. That's all. Thanks for watching.